Everybody, welcome back to the Green Zone Podcast on this January the 16th. We're back from our little winter break here that we had. We're back in the studio. It's good to have you. Good to see you all back here, all you Green Zoners out there. If you can't tell, I'm a little stuffed up right now. I got a good old water bottle here, so I might be taking some sips of that throughout this episode. Uh, Not sick, just a little allergy, sick, getting back to things. Winter here in Minnesota, not the most kind thing to the human soul. But the agenda for us today is to basically do a big deep dive into what we missed over the NFL season. We missed the last 2 weeks, which is a bummer. I know lots changed in these last 2, 3 weeks of the NFL season. We've missed 3 full NFL weeks, so our picks are kind of done with here on the Green Zone Podcast channel. But we still have a playoff bracket. We still have playoffs going on here. I do want to share with you the bracket that I did have for my pigskin picks brackets thing that we're kind of moving on here. It's not great so far, but we're just going to say it is what it is there. I'll give you my predictions on how I think the NFL season is going to shake down. The rest of the way, like I say, I'll be back on here next Thursday. We'll be talking just about everything from this weekend. I have some exciting news to announce too. We'll maybe announce that maybe towards the end of our show that will relate to content and whatnot. And yeah, so like today, it's going to be mainly an NFL podcast. We got a lot to cover, because one of my favorite days of the year is Black Monday. That came and went. And we knew the jobs that were open. We knew the Bears gig was open. The Jets gig was open. We didn't know that Mike McCarthy was not going to get re-signed there by Dallas. There was speculation there that Mike McCarthy was going to be re-signed. He was going to be let go. They weren't going to do much. It sounded like they were going to get a deal done close to the end, and then everything fell apart, basically on a contract thing. And we already saw a team fire a coach and hire a new one, with the Patriots doing their thing. But we currently got, we got 6 open coaching jobs right now. We got, of course, the Cowboys, Bears, Jets, Jags, Saints, and Raiders. With that comes a lot of opportunity from a lot of different individuals who are looking to get head coaching jobs in this year's go around. This year's kind of the tango, the way you want to dance around and trade partners here. I feel like all these teams just trade coaches and basically have the carousel go around and around. I don't think it's going to be anything too bananas about where some of these guys might end up, guys that got fired, or where some of these coaches that just didn't have a job as of last year, like i.e. Mike Vrabel ending back up at New England. I will react to that in a second here and what my thoughts and 2 cents are about that. Sorry, but like I say, it's gonna be a little bit of a stretch here with the allergies here, but I hope you can bear with me here. We're trying to gut through this one. I'm so desperate to get back in here and get content out to you guys. That allergies or not, I'm in here. I really want to get this back out, get this thing back rolling, and let's get these things back on the road here. Because once the NFL season ends, we will have our March Madness bracket. I'll be doing a whole thing. I'll sit down and do my entire bracket here. We got spring training starting back up. We still have the NBA season. We'll have the NHL season. We'll kind of start to glimpse into that and dip our feet into that bucket. Get some of that stuff going. And of course, like the NFL season never really stops. There's a lot of discussions that need to be happening and be made. So, we got to worry about that too as well. But I do want to start here, if I may, with NFL head coaches and whatnot. First off, with our first big coach that we thought was going to be in this year, that was Bill Belichick, taking a job at North Carolina. I think it's almost like a verbal commitment that he made because a report came out today that Belichick has not signed his contract. Seems a bit odd, but maybe he was waiting for all these NFL coaches to finally get a final saying where they're going to be, and maybe he was waiting to see if that was going to happen and just took the North Carolina job because he felt like that was going to be at least a guaranteed job for him and a chance to work with your kid. Like, is it a big master plan to get Steve Belichick the head coach at North Carolina? I mean, I don't know. It seems like that could be an option, something like that. But I think because of that, we have to look at the fact that is Bill Belichick going to be coaching in college or the NFL next year? I mean, I don't think a lot of us thought that this Dallas Cowboys job was going to be open. I didn't expect Mike McCarthy to be a free agent as a coach. I mean, he was a guy who's won over 150 games in his career. He's won a Super Bowl. He's done a lot of things for a lot of different franchises in his, career resume of where he's been and whatnot. And I'm not surprised that Dallas didn't re-sign him because I don't think that's how Jerry Jones operates. And but what's disappointing is that you win 12 games back-to-back years and you have a year decimated by injuries, and then you go, "Oh, well, that's it. We're gonna wipe our hands clean of you." Like, especially when Jerry Jones didn't really help out the Cowboys at all this year, free agent wise. Not very aggressive in the offseason. Yeah, like Ezekiel Elliott was the big signing, and Eric Kendricks, like, it doesn't excite a lot of people out here. And you can expect, and Dak Prescott missed most of the year. It's like I don't understand. I think Mike McCarthy did the best he could with Cooper Rush and Trey Lance, I guess, for that last week or so. But I don't know. Like I'm looking at the open availability jobs. Like I mentioned, Jacksonville, New Orleans, Chicago, the New York Jets, who are interviewing just about everybody. And it's, looking like one of those things where um, I think McCarthy's a great fit for the Jets, but like, where does he eventually end up? I think if we're ranking the situations here of best case scenario for these guys to go to, if we take McCarthy and look at him, and you take Dallas out of the equation, McCarthy's probably the best fit in either the New York Jets or the Chicago Bears, just for the sole purpose of you have a quarterback. I would put Jacksonville right behind them because also too, you have a quarterback that you have Trevor Lawrence, a viable quarterback. You have Brian Thomas and Christian Kirk in your receiver core. You got players there, even like Tank Bigsby at running back. Like there's players to be had there. Evan Ingram's not a bad player, but Doug Peterson just was not getting it done there. They finished 4-13 this year. Um, you're looking at something where Jacksonville has done this before now for a few years, trying to find their right coach, bring in Urban Meyer. We all know how that went. You bring in Doug Peterson, which was at the time I thought was a good hire because he's a guy who's won a Super Bowl within the last 5 years. He's done it with a good squad. You're going to develop and build Trevor Lawrence into what everyone's is expecting him to be because I don't really think we've seen quite exactly what Trevor Lawrence should be based on the hype right now, and that's going to be interesting to see what he eventually becomes. Deep down, I always think there's a chance out there that Jacksonville might get a really good offer from a team who wants to get a quarterback this year because the free agent pool is just not ideal for quarterbacks. And with that, I mean, Jacksonville seems like it's a pretty optimistic place to be coaching. But I would have to probably put Chicago at the top of the list when it comes down to what is the best situation for Mike McCarthy to go into because you do have Caleb Williams. You still have DJ Moore. We don't know what's going to happen with Keenan Allen quite yet, but Roma Dunze, it feels like they're going to be back this year. And especially because the Bears, have a lot of salary cap space. You need to improve that offensive line for sure because Caleb was running for his life. When he wasn't holding the ball forever, he was running for his life. That's on Caleb. And that's also just because a rookie quarterback needs to fill out what his projection is to be, what he is expected to be as a quarterback. Because I think for the past 2 years now, we've seen, there's two quarterbacks this year we've seen with Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels. Daniels being the superior one of the two. And CJ Stroud from last year. You've seen your two number 2 picks the last 2 years blossom and bring their team to the playoffs. And we've seen the last two number 1 picks struggle in their first year. I wouldn't say Caleb Williams is like struggling as much as Bryce Young, but it wasn't certainly what the Bears had in mind for what they were going to be. I don't think they ever had them being 5-12. I think I had them at 10-7 and making the playoffs. Like that's 5 games I was wrong on. And I also thought the Jets were going to contend. They didn't contend. Now, the other thing too is in the NFL, you have to have the quarterback to win. And I don't think Mike McCarthy is going to go into a situation where he doesn't have a quarterback and he doesn't have a place that he's going to be successful right away. So that's why I think you eliminate both New Orleans and Vegas to start. Mainly, I think because yes, Oakland or Vegas has that high draft pick this year, um, but what comes with that is I think they want to get a guy who's a little more younger and you can kind of roll with the punches for a little bit. That's why I think a coordinator that we're talking about now, like Ben Johnson or Aaron Glenn, is good now because they have a little bit of time on their hands and they don't have as much experience coaching, which can be a good thing and a bad thing. But also, too, we've seen what Dan Campbell's done in Detroit with him not having hardly any head coaching experience in the same realm. I mean, Dan Campbell, before he got to the Giants, interim head coach for the Dolphins in 2015, and that's just interim. He went 5-7 in 2015, and then he wasn't a head coach for another 6 years. But Detroit still rolled with the punches too when they were 3-13-1 in 2021. So I mean, that's a very good sign of what it happens when you stick with a coach for more than a year. And I'll get on this in a second how I feel about Gerard Mayo getting fired by the Patriots. I don't really agree with that decision at all, but I understand as an organization that you think that is the best fit for your franchise as an owner, as the Crafts. That's your right. You know, that's you have a saying in that, and I understand that. But like, I think that Mike McCarthy is going to end up either in Chicago or New York, and I think if Aaron Rodgers especially wants to consider playing another season in New York, and Devontae Adams would be able to come back, that's all comes down to that the Jets front office feels that they are in a spot to run it back with the same squad. I don't know if they want to do that because it proved that with Rodgers, with Adams, with Brees Hall, with Garrett Wilson, it's like the same squad. Is it really made that much different, especially when Rodgers is a year older? I mean, I don't really know about how that working out there. But the possibility, like, think of this: if Aaron Rodgers wants to keep playing, and the Jets are like, "No, we're good. We're gonna find a way to trade you," and they trade him to Vegas, and assuming that Vegas might make a move to get a quarterback this year, whether that's Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders, like who on, so on and so forth. If Rodgers could walk in, be a day one starter, maybe turn that team into a much better team. Like Brock Bowers is a great tight end in football. Jacoby Myers had a really good season that no one's talking about. It's a shame Devontae left when he did, because I don't think he'll be going back to that franchise. But I mean, in Vegas could be one of those spots that if Aaron wants to play one more year and just say, what the hell, and I'll go out with my coach. We'll let him get a year and build some credibility, and then you go and get a quarterback this year, sit him the whole year, watch Rodgers do what he does, and we'll do what we can do. And like, not saying it's gonna be a successful year, but maybe Eric can go out with a little more saying what he wants to do. Maybe that's something that McCarthy would be interested in doing if he wants to go to the Raiders. But I think that's something that needs to happen with Aaron deciding what he wants to do. Like, so does that mean he's going to come back to the Jets? He's going to be going to Vegas. He's going to be playing, anywhere of these places that need a quarterback. I mean, you could look at Seattle if they wanted to move on from Geno Smith. I don't really see why they would, but I think Seattle could be one that is intriguing if they wanted to upgrade. Maybe go after a Sam Darnold or whatnot, or maybe Pittsburgh says, hey, we don't really want Fields or we don't really want Wilson back. Hey, Aaron Rodgers, let's come and do this in Pittsburgh. I mean, it's not beyond anyone's realm there that Rodgers could be a guy in Pittsburgh under Tomlin, kind of guys, old school dudes, And with the Jets, interviewing so many different guys, say hypothetically they hire Rex Ryan, who said he wants to go back there and said he's not going to let Aaron be Aaron anymore. then why would you want to come back to the Jets? I mean, and that way you just say, I'm coming back, but I'm not playing here. And, you know, let them all fire off and say they blew it and all this and whatnot. Um, like, look at how many teams in the NFL right now. I'm going to do a separate kind of research right now if we look at it. And look at some of the ones that actually need a quarterback now that aren't drafting high enough to be taking one this year or don't have a rookie that they can sit there and say, like, yeah, we're going to ride with this here. Okay. Like looking at this. Um, Cleveland with Deshaun Watson, you're paying him way too much money for him to be uh, not a part of your franchise. But if he doesn't play next year, you are kind of on a 1 year deal. Aaron, go to Cleveland, shake some things up. That's something you could do. Tennessee's in a spot to take a quarterback this year if they want to. So like Will Levis looking at that. That's not really, something that can happen. The Raiders currently sit at what, drafting sixth, seventh, or eighth, somewhere in that range. They could get a quarterback. They could move up to get one. Like in a year where I think the quarterback is not a huge premium, like I said, I think Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders are probably the only two right now that we're talking about going up and getting and trading for. I think some of those teams near kind of like the high end, the Raiders, the Titans, the Giants, you might go up and move up and secure that number one pick just because you feel like you can actually do that and you want to lock in what you want. I think Shador being a Giant is just perfect for what they want to do. I mean, New Orleans is a spot where Aaron could go in, but it's pretty much the same team. I don't really see that really working out that much. I mean, you look at a guy too. There's guys out there that are really probably might be elsewhere too, and that's like Kirk Cousins is like I think Atlanta's moving on to pick it to Penix. I you know the word is out, writing's on the wall. Kirk, it's over. 1 year deal in Atlanta. Sorry, our bad for signing you to this. You'll still get paid, but it's not going to be here. We'll go and get you somewhere else. And maybe that's where Pittsburgh goes. We'll take Kirk for a year. We'll take this for a year. But at that point, too, does Pittsburgh just sit there and say, we'll just re-sign Fields or we'll re-sign Russell? Because I think Justin Fields, just this past year, absolutely deserved a chance to be the starting quarterback, not just for this year, but for the future for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Like I truly believe that can happen. He's only 25 years old. He was 4-2 in the 6 games he started and threw 5 touchdowns, 1 interception, and ran for 5 more touchdowns. And he only lost 1 fumble. So 2 turnovers to 10 touchdowns, completed over 65% of his passes for 1,000 yards. I mean, yeah, he wasn't dropping back and being Patrick Mahomes, but that's not what Pittsburgh was asking him to be. They were just asking him to kind of be a bouncing in-between guy. And I don't understand, why that couldn't happen next year in Pittsburgh. Like, why couldn't Justin Fields be that guy again? And they get a younger guy that they can build around, and that's something that, like, personally, I think it's a great fit. If we've still yet to see the best of Justin Fields, and I don't think we've seen the best of him yet, he's had games where we've seen really efficient quarterback play, both passing and rushing from him. In an age where the NFL needs to be, you have to have a mobile quarterback, and you have to have a quarterback that can drop back, throw, can run, can scramble when he needs to, create plays. Justin Fields, on paper, is one of the perfect quarterbacks for the NFL in the modern day and age. But we've yet to see that from him yet. We've seen it from Lamar Jackson. We've seen it from Justin Herbert even. I don't think we've seen the best of Justin Fields. Where that happens, I don't know. I think Pittsburgh's a good enough team and Tomlin's a good enough coach. You get the right coordinator in there, things can start happening really quick and things can be changing here. I think Fields is a good guy for Pittsburgh. But going back to our head coaching discussion here about where some of these guys end up, the quarterback's the premium at where these guys want to get jobs. I'm looking at here where, like, does Robert Saleh get a job? Is that something that maybe the Bears or Jacksonville want to go in? And Jacksonville's tried to unlock Lawrence for the past so many years. Maybe they really give Cliff Kingsbury a shot and go, hey, we'll bring you in and here's a blank check, fill it out. What is it going to take? Because I think Cliff Kingsbury in Chicago is like a perfect marriage for Kingsbury to work hand in hand with Caleb Williams, but there's Ben Johnson on the line. Like there's other options that the Bears have that might be better, and I think the Bears job was more lucrative to some of those high end jobs. And I think Ben Johnson, I think it's safe to say, he's probably the favorite candidate out there for the highest head coaching job. I don't think it's a stretch to say that Ben Johnson's probably the best candidate out there, and he could pick wherever he wants to go. I don't think that's a stretch to say. So like Cliff Kingsbury, if he's the B team and Ben Johnson's the A team, I mean Kingsbury could try and figure it out in Jacksonville and give himself maybe a second career as a head coach once again. It wasn't bad in Arizona when he was there; it just wasn't really, I wouldn't say necessarily good. They probably like underachieved, but at the same time, I mean, I think that they still got themselves a good coach when they were down there. And Kyler Murray, probably you have to credit a lot of his evolution as an NFL quarterback to being in Cliff Kingsbury's offensive system. And I'm looking here at what Dallas is going for, and the rumors of Deion Sanders going to Dallas. And he previously said that he wanted to coach his sons, plural, Shador and Shiloh in the NFL, which I don't think Dallas will be able to pull off. There's no one that probably wants Dak Prescott at 60 million a year more than the Dallas Cowboys. Um, I don't know. I mean, I understand why you do it because no one loves the free press of word of mouth about the Cowboys more than Jerry Jones. No one does. Um, so it could be a lot of just hoopla that we're looking at here, and it could be just so much different. I think personally, as much as I love Dion's personality and what he brings to a program or an organization, I think there's better fits for Dallas to go out and get a real NFL coach. And Dion probably still has more to prove at Colorado. And also, too, the fact that if you want to really leave a legacy at these colleges that you're going to, whether it's Jackson State, Colorado, it'd be nice to see him stay for a little longer at Colorado and really see what he could be. And then maybe he takes that NFL head coaching job when he feels like he's ready to go to the NFL. Not so much when your kids are going to the NFL. It's kind of like that thing. It would be nice to see Colorado get some credibility there and finish maybe as a top, be in a playoff, be in the new with the new format of the playoff, be in the playoff, make a run, get some guys in there and make Colorado a program again. He's already done that, but can we take the next leap and the next step up so we go from the bottom of the barrel? I think they skipped the mid-major. They're here at a solid program right now. They were ranked in the top 25 to end the year. You got to a bowl game. Didn't work out, but you got yourself to a bowl game. Can you take that next step into the premier programs of college football, not just based on who your coach is, but what your team's doing on the field? I mean, there's a lot of teams out there that, let's be honest, their coach much better probably than the college program itself. When you can meet in that middle, when the program and the coach are right at the same level, that's when you got a pretty good program there, especially in college sports when the coach is the face of that program. And that's very much when kids get recruited. They want to go play for the Ryan Days, the Urban Meyers, the Nick Sabans of the world. Like those are the coaches you want to play for. But their programs are right on the same par as who the coach is. And I think that Dion right now is probably here and the program's here. And we want to get that to meet at the same point in time so that it's an even playing field for everyone trying to be. I mean, I know Jim Harbaugh left for the NFL after 2010 when he was 12-1 at Stanford, and Stanford won an Orange Bowl that year. And they finished fifth ranked in the nation, fourth by the BCS, that time still in the BCS standings. There you go. Like that's a top five program, and that brought Andrew Luck to Stanford and some of those things you build on. And Jim's had a very good career in the NFL, and that's something you can't really take away from him. He's only made the playoffs four of the first 5 seasons coaching in the NFL, and the other one he's 8-8. You know, there's one too where Harbaugh very much evolved into being an NFL coach. I'd like to see Dion still maybe make a few more adjustments at the college level before he takes the NFL job. Because I think for him, how do I say this? The media wants to probably tear him down more than any coach in college football. And it's so fun to see what Prime brings to the table to be a big little F you to all the people out there saying that you want to tear me down. Watch me. I'm going to kick your team's ass on Saturday. And now I'm going to come to the NFL and I'm going to kick your team's ass on Sunday. Like that'd be kind of a fun little thing for Dion to do. And I don't want to see him go to the NFL and flop. And then all of a sudden, Dion's no longer a hireable NFL coach. I don't really want to see that. I'm still going to talk about NFL coaching here because I want to get to the point where Gerard Mayo got fired from New England and Mike Vrabel's brought in because I got some salty feelings about that. I'm not a Patriots fan at all. Not. But what I do think happened to Gerard Mayo is so unfair about how he got 1 year to be a really solid coach and say, well, you're following what the arguably the greatest. You know, without if Bill Belichick's not the greatest coach of all time, he is for sure on the Mount Rushmore with, Belichick, Lombardi, uh, you know, uh, Chuck Noll maybe, and Bill Walsh. He's for sure on that list, and there's plenty of other guys you could throw out there. You could put Andy Reid on that list. You could put all these guys on the list. But teams have had some of the greatest dynasties in their time. Patriots in the 2000s, 2010s, Steelers in the 70s, Niners in the 80s, Packers in the 60s. It's a perfect balance of guys who have had dynasties. So you're following that guy, and you're handpicked by that guy. You used to play for that guy, and it's the same owner. I sometimes wonder here if the Crafts had a bit of a problem not being good. Because what? They were supposed to win 4.5 games? Like that didn't happen. So what did you really expect out of the guy when you have a rookie quarterback who wasn't starting early on? You can argue that maybe if they had played Drake May the whole season, that New England could have gotten a few more wins, whatever hoopla and whatnot. But you had Jacoby Brissett coming in. You knew it was only a matter of time that Drake May was going to take over. And with that comes the learning curve. That happens with rookie quarterbacks. There's no rookie quarterback, I don't think, that we see that has a perfect season. And when I say perfect season, I mean establishing themselves as probably one of the top two quarterbacks in football. Like right now, if Jaden Daniels was going to finish right behind either Lamar or Josh Allen for MVP. What I'm looking up here is like uh, the only rookie that's ever won MVP was Jim Brown in 1957, and Stroud was the rare guy that was ever even in the mix for MVP in his rookie year. And I think Jane Daniels will get some votes. He'll get votes. It's just what happens. Stroud finished 8th last year in the MVP voting, but like look at who finished above him. Lamar, Prescott, Purdy, Josh Allen, Mahomes, and Stafford. Stafford was tied for 8th. And so you're looking at 6 quarterbacks you still have to leapfrog to get to that level. We don't see that in the NFL. So you take Drake May, who's going to have his learning problems, his learning curves and whatnot, and then you give that off to a team around him that's not that awesome. Like what do you really expect? They did probably as expected, and they go, that's not good enough. Is it really a rip on Gerard Mayo? Is it more so that you felt that you could be so much better if you had Mike Vrabel? I think it's one of those things that's not a diss on Gerard Mayo, but it's more so we really wanted Vrabel, but you could have done that last year. Like that's kind of like my beef I have with the Crafts and the Patriots is like kind of I don't really understand the point of why you feel like you need to be this macho franchise and we only care about winning and whatnot because the rest of the franchise in the NFL go through rebuilds. We all go through rebuilds. The Patriots did it for probably about 20 years before Brady got there. Before even like when Bledsoe got there in the 70s and 80s, man, the Patriots are not a good football team. So what comes with that is you got to rebuild. And now, like to the rest of us, we don't care that New England sucks now. We're not like, oh, poor Patriots. But does Robert Kraft have a problem with being 3-14, 4-13, 5-12? Like, do we have a problem with that? We can only be 12-5, and that's it. Like to me, it seems greedy. To me, it seems like Gerard Mayo should get another chance to coach in the NFL. For a guy getting a first time job, even above a coordinator, I think he should have been given more time. Like I mentioned there earlier with Dan Campbell. Dan Campbell got more than in 2 years after going 3-13-1 and 8-8 or 9-8. Like that's and look where Detroit is now because you build something there. And they never allowed Mayo to build anything. And maybe they will with Vrabel here, but I still think that will always hang over some of the Crafts. Um, maybe decision making on being owners is like to me it just seems kind of bush league for them to do that. But I mean, to be fair, when you're used to winning that much, it might be hard to be anything less than you got the champagne taste on a beer budget. That just might be what the Patriots are and what they want to be. And we don't go through ups and downs anywhere. We just stay here and we go up and we, right here. We don't go, which is what they kind of did over the last few years when ever since Brady left. But so I think Mayo, and that applies the same thing I'm talking about here with Antonio Pierce. I'm saying that with the Raiders, Antonio Pierce, they gave Pierce 1 full year as head coach and interim as the rest. I don't think that's really fair to him either, but that's just the way the NFL works. It's a business. So I want to jump now to what's actually going on in the NFL in the playoffs so far. What I think is going to happen here now is we're in the divisional round of playoffs. Um, and with that, I wanted to share my bracket that I had predicted. As we head into this one, I look at, I did my weekly picks. I didn't get to do them for the last 2 or 3 weeks. I want my picks back. Um, so I initially had the Chargers beating the Texans. That was a terrible pick for me to have. I did pick the Ravens and Bills to be where they are now. Eagles, I picked over the Packers. I had the Commanders over the Buccaneers, so that one was right. But I did have the Vikings beating the Rams, and they would have been playing the Eagles this week. So most of my picks are pretty okay. Problem is, I had the Vikings beating the Eagles in Philly, so that's not happening. So obviously, that bracket, at least that part of it's busted. But I'm gonna break this down game by game. We're just gonna see what I think is gonna happen this week and where I think the NFL will be next time we come on here next week. And we're counting down the days towards Super Bowl Sunday. It's February 9th. We're less than a month away. And for all these discussions that we've been having here in the NFL for the past 4 months, comes down to this weekends and week outs and our weekly picks. It comes down to one final playoff run here. So the Chiefs and Texans. As much as I want to say Houston has a chance, I think that Kansas City rested. You can hope if you're Houston that they're sloppy and they're not used to maybe being Kansas City yet. And after getting their butts whooped against Denver that last week, whether it's against the worst team in the league or not, you think that maybe it would kind of like to hurt some morale. but I don't think so. I think the Chiefs will take this one. Currently favored by Vegas here. What's the actual spread? Has Kansas City at 7.5. I mean, I uh I don't think it might be that close. Might be bigger, might be smaller, but I do think the Chiefs will win this one over the Texans. They'll be going to the conference championship once again. Now the Bills and the Ravens. It's a tough game. It's in Buffalo. These teams have pretty much been neck and neck at who's the best second team in the AFC, if you want to put that there. It's a 2 o'clock game in Buffalo there. To me, I think Baltimore might be the best team in the AFC. But Buffalo has a lot riding on this thing. It'd be great to see the Chiefs and Bills going at it once again. Um, I think I'm going to say this. Whoever wins this Bills Ravens game is going to be going to the Super Bowl, and I think the Ravens are going to win this game. I just have a feeling that Lamar is going to outplay Allen. Allen might make some mistakes, cough up the ball maybe a few times, maybe on the ground, maybe throwing, and Baltimore finds ways to beat you in so many ways. So I'm going to say it's going to be Chiefs and Ravens in the championship round. Now on the NFC side, we're going to start with the 2 and 4 seed game with the Eagles and the Rams. Look, the Eagles don't really look like that great of a team come playoff time. The Rams actually played pretty well against the Vikings, shut them down. Their defense was well prepared. The spread here is 6.5 for Philadelphia. And look, I don't know like of what to think of Philly because you're playing at home where they don't really lose hardly at all. What were they at home this year? What was it, 8-1? And they won last week, 9-1. So Philly doesn't really lose at home. But the Rams have that sort of storybook ending here right now with the wildfires out there in LA and that they're playing for something bigger than themselves. So if the Rams win, you can say they got the whole LA on their side and they're playing for something like that. If they lose, you might say the fatigue of going into Philly might be a little too much for them. I want to see what the spread is going to be. I say it was 6.5 points for Philly. Um, my gut tells me to go with the Rams, but I think for what I want to see, the two best teams in the NFC all year face off in the final. I'm going to take the Eagles in this one, and they'll be moving on to the NFC Championship. And I'll be brief here about this next one because Detroit at 9.5 point favorites over the Commanders. Jay Nails might have a good game, but the Lions are so complete. I'm going to go Chiefs and Ravens and the Lions and Eagles. And that's what I'm going to lock in for this week because I'm not going to get ahead of myself. I don't want to spoil my picks for the Super Bowl. I'm going to take that week in and week out. We'll predict who we think was going to happen at the week. I'm just going to leave it at that for that much. And, there's a lot on the line for a lot of these teams. Like, can the Chiefs become the greatest dynasty ever if they win 3 in a row? Who knows? Like, all this stuff. There's a lot of storylines still to be had in the NFL, so we don't want to jump that yet. We'll still have talking points about that for next week. So I want to introduce one more thing that's going to be coming here content-wise. I mentioned earlier that I would be breaking this down for our green zoners out there. Last year, I did some of these quizzes on our page that had us testing out, my knowledge in the NFL, in the NBA, kind of like a seasonal thing. And with that, I think I wanted to continue doing that, but there's kind of a price you pay for doing that, and that comes with maybe having to do this on a different, arena. So you're going to get me twice a week. You're going to get me on the Green Zone podcast every Thursday, as usual, as we do things on this channel. But what we're going to be launching here coming up shortly is we'll be doing a different page. We will be having quizzes, I'll be doing these every Tuesday. So we give me Tuesday, you'll have quizzes. I'll be doing Sporkle quizzes online. Kind of a fun way to test our little knowledge which seemed to be a big hit when we did this one earlier last spring and whatnot into the fall. Be nice to continue that one to keep going. So we're doing our quizzes on Tuesdays, Green Zone podcast on Thursdays. That's be our recording schedule here. So the Green Zone podcast will stay the same. Thursdays will be your pod with me. But if you're looking for more content, it will be coming to your way on Tuesdays with our quiz page that will be going on and launching here shortly. So I want to thank you all for tuning in this week to the Green Zone podcast. Keep posted here for our new channel. We'll be going up on Tuesdays. We'll be doing our quizzes here coming up as well. So from Cameron Green on the Green Zone podcast, I want to thank you all for listening, and we'll see you guys next Thursday.